In light of a lot of new people joining the channel and in light of a lot of people dropping more and more questions, I decided to do a more refined power scaling guide since the last one I made, while it got a lot of support, didn't really show much on the screen regarding scans, right? And also I was on a phone, so your speakers will be loud as fuck. So, in light of that, we are making a new power scaling video. So, we're going to be analyzing the current scaling meta, specifically power scaling, not speed scaling. I will cover speed scaling calculations in other videos. So all we're covering here is simply the tiering system, right? Notice I also have other tabs open on my screen, right? We're just covering attack potency, briefly going over bits of mathematics and like the differences between like some gaps. We're going to explain the differences between lifting strength and striking strength, and durability. We'll just quickly cover that since that tab is getting on my nerves. So anyway, okay, so on to the video. So basically, I'm going to keep it brief. Basically, this is just explaining like where the power scaling and where like the multiversal essentially concept comes from and what they're applying here. And then like the scale is where is the important part, right? So now for tier 11, right, lower dimensional, this is pretty simple, right? Point, line, plane. When essentially you're tier 11, you're essentially like what you write on, say, like a piece of paper, like you're like a point, or you could be where you infinitely expand, you're then a line, and then essentially you're a plane, right? A 2D object would be what we refer to as a piece of paper, right? Now for tier 10, right, basically Homo sapien, we're talking below human level. Essentially for like 10C, below human, like small animals, people with, I guess, disabilities, right? I guess people in society that will have like hindrances such as, say, diseases, sicknesses, broken bones, the works, right? Small animals like, I guess, cats, dogs, that stuff. Average human level characters, that speaks for itself. Normal human characters, just normal everyday office boy in society that can't really get a better job, hasn't really exercised a day in his life because he hasn't had the time to. Athlete level, probably, we're talking about, like, I guess, most versions of, James Bond, Bruce Lee, that shit, right? Or at least martial artists. Tier 9, structural. To keep it simple, this is where we can move on to street tier, right? Street level is essentially where you have peak humans, low superhuman. A popular example of this, I guess, would be like early Resident Evil characters, I guess, like Chris, Leon, before they have their feats, like with Nemesis and whatnot. And essentially, I guess, characters are like souped up on like cocaine, or like characters souped up, they got an amp, right? It's basically just retardedly powerful martial artists in movies. And large animals like, you know, elephants, dinosaurs, all that shit, right? Large animals, again, like elephants, rhinos, I guess dinosaurs and whatnot, whatever, right? Wall level, definitely. This is where we can talk about the hippopotamus. Elephants definitely should be actually in this tier, at least. Well, I should say for like large animals, I guess tigers, or like, you know, lions would be a better example for large animals. But I digress, anyway, so. Can destroy walls. Characters like Pyramid Head are a good example of this. And unironically, the Forrest Gump meme, although that's more like a meme, I kind of do it for fun. I don't really believe it's actual wall level. Small building level. Basically, I blow up a room, like, say, an office, or I say blow up a security room. Just rooms, right? Basically, like, 1-unit buildings, right? Like, small 1-unit buildings, like, say, like, I guess, like, a small, like, lawyer's office, right? Yeah, that'd be a good example of, like, small, or, like, room/small building. Even got my soda here, too, but anyway. Okay, so, tier 8 is when things start to get a little freaky. You have building level, and then you have large building level. I'll cover that in attack potency, but basically the gap between these two is a very, very, very wide gap, right? Very much so. Basically, characters can, like, level buildings. I guess popular examples would be like weaker JoJo characters that don't scale to the city block or multi-city block tiers. Another example you could give is like is like essentially like the building level Bumblebee meme from like the Bay films. You know, it should be a lot more than building level. That's another example of building level. So, kind of speaks for itself. You can level buildings, and then you can level large buildings, so you're building a large building level. For city block, basically, this is actually where, like, I guess you can scale characters like Bumblebee disregarding, like, the massively hypersonic speed scaling and also planetary scaling. You have characters like weaker JoJo characters. You can say Guts is around city block to multi-city block. I've heard Wind like a potential city level feat for Guts. But anyway, characters like Guts, you can scale like the city block to multi-city block. Multi-city block is basically just you can destroy multiple city blocks at once. City block, you basically just level city blocks, right? Basically, whenever you're beyond building, you're like beyond street tier at that point. So, popular example, multi-city block again, Guts, Dio from JoJo, Jotaro Kujo, you can say he's like multi-city block. If you want to scale in the higher tiers, I do not care. But those are examples of some city block, multi-city block busters. Now for town level. Okay, so town, right? There's just ranges of town level. I guess a good example of large town you could say is like Ant Red Hot Chili Pepper from like part 4. Let's see. You can also include, I guess, Katsuki Bakugo. You can include Izuku Midoriya. Well, of course, depending on the version of Midoriya, right? Because, you know, One for All, sometimes it might be a little weird. But anyway, you can say characters like Midoriya, Bakugo, Todoroki, that you can scale them to these tiers. Probably higher, but I haven't really seen anything above, like, Large Town for, like, base Midoriya. Not even, like, getting to the higher forms of One for All, Todoroki, or Bakugo. So, city level, big difference between large town and city level. City is a massive difference above large town. Essentially, this is where like the scaling starts to become a little nutty, at least in regards to the planetary tiers. So, whenever you can like level cities, basically this means you can like level places like essentially New York, right? Or you can level places like, I don't know. You could level places like, I guess, like St. Louis. You could level places like, essentially, generally just cities, large cities, just cities in general, right? Basically, not, kind of speaks for itself, you can level cities. Now, okay. Now, disregard, like, the numbers real quick. Mountain and island, there's a very large difference between mountain and island, right? Basically, for mountain level, a good example would be like Kotori Itsuka's like fire feat, or like the feat with her flames, whenever she burnt down the entirety of Tengu. You can say 100% Bakugo. I've heard he scales the mountain. There's even a version of Midoriya that should be able to be mountain level as well. But I don't know the specific version, but basically like Ant Bakugo and Ant Midoriya, you can scale to like mountain tiers. You can lowball All Might, say he's like mountain level too. There's plenty of mountain level characters, like you could say certain characters from say Monsterverse, like you know just general kaiju. There's a lot of characters that have like mountain level scaling, so I've even seen like mountain level calc for like Cars or like the Red Stone. To my knowledge, I don't think that's consistent though for Cars to be mountain level, but I don't know. Mountain kind of speaks for itself. The gap between like mountain and island is a very wide gap. Whenever you can destroy islands, basically means you can destroy like plots of land. Or say large mountain would consist of things like the Himalayas, Mount Everest, and then like lower mountain levels would basically just be stuff below Himalayas, Mount Everest, the works. So, Now for island level, right? Islands a popular, or not really popular, it's more like a niche area that has some popularity. Island level characters, Data Live characters come to mind, like I guess Naya Honjo. You could say Spirit Origami. General Data Live characters, you can scale these tiers, which begin Data Live. I'm definitely going to be reskilling a bunch of Data Live characters and do a tier list sometime. Simply so that I can, like, I guess wrap up the scaling for that verse and move on to something else. But for country level, if you lowball Kinshiro from like Vista North Star, you can get him anywhere from like island to like small country. He should scale a lot higher though than just like small country or like large island. So Kinshiro's an example. If you like Calc Stack or Highball Metroplex and Fall Cybertron, since I need to rescale Metroplex, because that's been a long time ago since I scaled Metroplex. You could say like large country or like country level. Sometimes you get to these areas because of a Calc Stack. Sometimes you'll get to these areas from general like country level feats. Sometimes you get to these areas about how like how this guy can like one shot this entire nation, or how this guy can like one shot an entire homeland, or how this guy could generally just, I guess, one shot territory, right? If you can destroy things consisting of like anywhere from I guess Colorado, or basically the size of some of the states in the U.S., then yeah, your country level and like continent is basically just a lot more than just country, where you can like level places like Canada, Mexico, the United States, Japan, China, or if you can level places like Russia, India, Africa, continents, right? Those would be continents. Basically, they're just much, much, much larger than countries, right? Big difference between the two, like scaling-wise, but generally follows a similar concept. For multi-continental, you are life-wiping worlds. Basically, this means that, like, you are going to fire off this nuke that's just gonna life-wipe the entirety of the Earth and just shave, like, a layer of the Earth off, right? You are just blowing everything sky high. Like, imagine blowing about, like, a 30th of the Earth just from, like, the outside of it. Now, I'm talking about, like, the atmosphere and thing, but the outside of it, you are just shaving off that entire surface, right? You are literally wiping the surface. That's multi-continental, right? Examples of, like, this would be, like, Boros, right? You can say he could be multi-continental. You could also say he could be planetary, right? Depends on how you handle One Punch Man scan, right? But you could say, like, Boros is a good example of multi-continental. Mukuro Hoshimiya from Data Live with their ceiling hacks. You can say she has multi-continental ceiling hacks. If you, like, don't believe the planetary universal stuff, you can say multi-continental. There's a lot of popular multi-continental characters. People will scale Saitama multi-continental. People will sometimes... I don't know about Tatsumaki. I'd have to, like, see, like, multi-continental Tatsumaki. I'm a little skeptical of that, but I don't know. It's not out there for me. I just have to concede consistency for multi-continental for myself. So, like, essentially, this is where, like, you're leveling the entire world. You're not destroying anything on, like, the scale of, like, the moon, but you're, like, life-wiping the entire world, and you're just shaving parts of it off. Or you're just shaving off a complete layer of the world. That is multi-continental. Now, for moon level, right? Fun fact, the moon is the size of Texas, but the reason why the moon, or like moon level, is usually just very high in multi-continental or its own tier entirely, is due to this thing called GBE, right? Or gravitational binding. Or, excuse me, like, basically gravitational binding energy, right? Basically, it's the gravitational axis that keeps the moon in orbit around with the Earth. It keeps it in sync, right? That's the energy of, like, what the moon holds. And then when you exceed this energy, basically, this can be done in the form of, say, I don't know, blowing up the entire fucking moon, probably one of the most popular examples is like Raditz and like Piccolo from Dragon Ball. Definitely a good example of like moon busting. You can also say Master Roshi, since he can bust the moon. Roshi is a decent example of like a moon buster. I guess you can say like Oddish, from the Osmian Kingdom back in like Destiny lore, like before she became Oryx. Oryx is like more than powerful enough to like blow up worlds and shit. Oddish to like initial Oryx, you can say like can like blow up moons and whatnot. There's even some like I've heard there's some moon level stuff like Yu Yu Hakusho, but I know like you can scale Yu Yu Hakusho above moon level. I have heard like moon level Naruto. I've also heard like moon level Bleach. Although I know like Naruto and Bleach are a lot more than moon level. But basically like when you can essentially blow up the entire fucking moon, or like just exceed the gravitational binding energy, that will get you to like moon level, definitely, right? Now for planetary, it's basically like where you, compared to the moon, which is like the size of Texas, you get around the gravitational binding energy of the entire Earth and basically blow that fucker up, right? Good examples of this is probably Saiyan Saga Vegeta, Ralph from Fist of the North Star. If we just say he's planetary from like the statements or like translations of him like essentially smashing worlds. Goku when he fought Vegeta. Large planet, basically we're talking about things like fucking Jupiter. That would be like what we call large planet. The Earth is what we call like a mid planet. Maybe slightly larger than the Earth. You could say it's like planet level. Now, in regards to large planet though, there is a difference, because people like to bring up One Piece, right? In One Piece, basically, people say that whenever you blow up the entire planet, you're essentially like large planet level in like One Piece, right? That's not true at all. The planet in One Piece is actually the size of a star, and everything within the solar system orbits around the One Piece Earth, which should take us over to the star level area, right? Now, basically, when you're blowing up stars, you're essentially blowing up the center of the solar system, like stars, right? Basically, things like, white stars, blue stars, essentially supergiant stars, red stars, orange/yellow stars, right? That's the stuff you're blowing up whenever you like star ranges, right? Getting back to the One Piece thing I was talking about is that One Piece Earth actually is the size of a star. It's literally confirmed in the anime and in the manga. There's even a calculation I saw for the size of the world. So it is the size of like a star, probably a large star, considering like the solar system, or like the size of the solar system orbiting around the One Piece Earth. So that would be like, I guess, conjecture. All we really know is that like the One Piece Earth is anywhere from like star to large star. Popular star to large star area. Probably Kaguya from Naruto. People say that like whenever like she creates her dimensions, we see like a couple stars orbiting around one of her dimensions. Essentially create like a small solar system. People say that's like anywhere from like large star to like solar system level. Naruto, Sasuke from the War Arc. I've heard some solar system stuff from Yu Yu Hakusho. You can get them to solar system level. Cell from Dragon Ball. People say he's anywhere from like solar system to like multi-solar system. So Cell's a good example of solar system to multi-solar system. If you believe Kenshiro is solar system level, simply from like upscaling from the star stuff and Fist of North Star, again, doesn't really bother me where you put these characters, but just giving like examples. If you believe Kenshiro or like Rao can like essentially blow up stars or like solar systems at their full power, they would be examples of solar system busters. There are also feats that Superman has where like he can blow up multiple solar systems. Although multi-solar systems, specifically for someone like Superman, if we're talking about like post-crisis, is probably no, not probably, it definitely is a low ball, right? Actually, how long have we been doing this so far? 20 minutes. Okay, we're good so far. So, basically, basic characters like Cell, Kenshiro, if we lowball Post-Crisis Superman's an example. Basically, these characters can, like, blow up star systems, right? And keep in mind, the difference between a star system and a star is a massive difference. So, now for places like Galaxy and Multi-Galaxy, people have scaled Sidious from Star Wars to, like, Galaxy to, like, Galaxy Plus. So you can use Sidious as an example. I'm not sure where he is consistently, but I've heard he can, like, at least destroy multiple solar systems or galaxies, possibly. So you can use Lord Sidious from Star Wars as an example. Multi-Galaxy, you can use probably adult Naruto, adult Sasuke, Momoshiki, probably. You can, like, scale multi-galaxy characters, like, from Bleach. Multi-galaxy, basically, so-and-so amounts of star systems are contained within galaxies. And, like, galaxies essentially is, like, where you just level, like, the entire thing that's holding all those solar systems. Multi-galaxy essentially is just where you destroy multiple galaxies. Again, places like Bleach, possibly adult Naruto, and possibly adult Sasuke, Momoshiki characters around those tiers. They're potentially multi-galaxy. I've heard multi-galaxy is the most consistent for Bleach, at least on the end game, at least in regards to Ichigo, like Aizen. So, like, you can say multi-galaxy for there. Universal. So, here's the thing for, like, Universal, right? So, there are 3 tiers of Universal. So, basically, whenever we're talking about Universal, we are talking about, like, the finite universe, right? Like, our calculable, observable universe, right? Basically, what we have established in regards to the diameter, scaling off light years, basically, just finite universes, right? The most popular example is probably just the observable universe. Basically, characters can scale to these tiers, through, like, direct statements to, like, space-times, or can scale this if they destroy a certain amount of galaxies, or have calculable ranges around those levels. So, that is universal. High universal is essentially where you blow up infinite space, or where you blow up the infinite universe. Basically, if you have infinite power, you can, like, blow this up. Popular examples I've seen is probably, like, at Universal, the High Universal, possibly Uni Plus. Kid Buu is an example. Goku from Buu Arc. Uni Plus, if you think they can blow up at entire space-times, including the fabric that holds it. The gap between Universal and High Universal is an infinite gap. There's an inaccessible gap between High Universal and Uni Plus. So, like, Universal for, like, Buu Arc, people generally argue about it a lot. But basically, Universal Plus, or, like, Low 2C, is, like, good examples for, like, Uni Plus. Buhan, if you believe he can level the entire realm, or if you can believe he can destroy the entire space-time. Another example you could say is possibly Yuha from Bleach, if we're talking about the Almighty, or we're talking about, like, his hacks. Again, probably, right? Just depends on, like, where you put Bleach. You can put it anywhere from, like, Multi-Galaxy, or lower, or even, like, Uni, or Uni Plus. I'm more in the range for Multi-Galaxy for Bleach, though. Basically, if you can destroy, like, 4th-dimensional space-times, or you can destroy entire space-times, like, for example, a good example of Uni Plus is probably Nightmare from Soul Calibur. A lot of people will say that, like, Nightmare is, like, Uni Plus. Multi-universal or low multiversal. I don't believe that there's multi-universal, because that's what low multiversal is. Basically, they explain multiversal, basically. You can create and or destroy up to 1,000 universes, and then when you go beyond 1,000, people will generally consider that as multiversal. I think a lot of people are just safer, or they believe it's safer, just to say you can destroy up to like 1,000 universes to be like a low multiversal. Then when you're beyond that, you're multiversal. You could call that like an arbitrary number, but most people will consider 1,000 for low multiversal. Good examples of low multiversal, probably Mio Takamiya from Data Live, the Beast from Data Live. You can say Dragon Ball characters like Goku, Jiren, Vegeta, characters that essentially scale around those tiers from Super. Possibly GT, but I'm skeptical of GT being a low multiversal low. But now you could scale Dragon Ball characters in from low multiversal, but I'm more convinced that low multiversal is a lot safer, simply because like multipliers don't equate always to like to the amount of what you can destroy. You can also just like argue because Zeno's best feats the multiversal, everyone in the verse would just scale below Zeno. So like you could say like low multiversal Dragon Ball or multiversal Dragon Ball makes no difference to me. Multiversal is multiversal at the end of the day, be it on a lower or higher scale. So there's no real difference between low multiversal and multiversal, other than just how much you can destroy. So, multiversal plus, basically an infinite amount of universes. Now, I do not believe that like high multiversal plus or is like 4D or infinite 4D. For multiversal plus, basically just means an infinite amount of fourth-dimensional space-times. Now for 5D, though, this is where you're not bound by linear time anymore. Basically, when you're 5D, essentially you're like a causal type 1 since you're bound linear time. You are also measurable speed by default. At least most of the time. Sometimes characters could just have fifth-dimensional powers, or could have like fifth-dimensional speeds, quote-unquote. Well, not really fifth-dimensional speeds. Like, it's more or less fifth-dimensional power. Sometimes people will argue to be immeasurable speed. Whenever we talk about, like, I guess, fifth-dimensional characters being acausal and, like, immeasurable speed by default, this will depend on dimensionality. This will also depend on, like, whether or not it's through a hack, power, technique, whatever, right? Generally just depends at the end of the day, like, what specifically is, like, 5D, right? But 5D is pretty blatant. Basically, you're inaccessibly above multiversal and multiversal plus, respectively. And, like, basically, you're inaccessibly above them, to be specific. So, you can't have characters around those ranges, right? A good example of fifth-dimensional characters would essentially just be Vector Prime. If we're talking about Transformers Cybertron, you could say, like, I guess Thanos from Marvel, you could, like, say is fifth-dimensional. Although there are versions of Thanos that should very clearly be above fifth-dimensional. Some people scale, like, Thanos to, like, infinite 4D. Some people scale him higher. But, fifth-dimensional essentially is just inaccessibly above multiversal / multiversal plus. So, now for complex multiversal, this is probably weird territory. Most characters you see in fiction is generally around the multi-galaxy to multiversal ranges. For complex multiversal, it's generally more of a niche area. Basically, it says it right here on the screen. When you're six-dimensional, complex multi essentially is where you're 7D to like 9D, 10D to 11D. You can call that high complex. Where you scale complex multiversal, be it low to high, is a bit arbitrary to me. But either way, degrees of like complex multiversal will be anywhere from 6D to 11 dimensional. So, good examples of this is probably Fate characters, like you have Gilgamesh being stated verbatim to be able to resist 8th dimensional hacks or like complex multiversal hacks. There are versions of Vector Prime, respectively from Transformers, who are complex multiversal, like 6D. People will lowball Primus and Unicron to 6D as well. But good examples of probably complex multiversal would be like Marvel characters, Transformers characters, Fate characters, those characters, right? They're generally like the more popular complex multiversal characters. Now for hyperversal, basically this is just where you can destroy a finite amount of dimensions, right? So whenever you're like, now I don't really care where you put low to like low hyperversal to hyperversal. Basically, whenever you're hyperversal, you're basically 12th dimensional. You can essentially just blow up, basically, 12th dimensional universes and up, or you have the power of like 12th, of like essentially like the 12th dimension or higher, like the 13th, 14th, on and on, right? That's or that's like low hyperversal, whatever you call it, right? Now for high hyperversal, basically, you can destroy infinite amount of Hilbert spatial dimensions. Basically, good examples of this in the hyperversal range is basically Unicron and Primus. You can scale them anywhere from hyperversal to high hyperversal. There might even be a couple versions of Unicron, or like one version of Unicron that might be outerversal. That could just be to the one. Also depends if you scale the one outerversal. A lot of people scale some Marvel characters to high hyperversal when they might actually be outerversal, but essentially, high hyperversal is a really popular area for some characters. I've heard some people scale Medaka from Medaka Box to high hyperversal. I've heard some people scale, like, I guess some fake characters to high hyperversal. I've even heard some people, I guess, scale some DC characters to high hyperversal when they might actually be outerversal, but there's a lot of high hyperversal characters. High hyperversal is not much of a niche, like, say, complex multiversal. So, again, hyperversal is just where you're 12D or higher, and basically just anything 12D or just beyond 12D finitely, infinitely, you're high hyperversal. So yeah, high hyperversal is kind of a popular area from some characters. Actually, there's certain versions of Godzilla from what I've seen that could be high hyperversal. Now for outerversal, this is probably the most popular tier because people love saying that the character is outerversal when they might really not be, or because like there could be consistency for outerversal. Basically, here's what outerversal is, right? Basically, you're beyond the concept of space and time. You could be transdual, which essentially just means you're beyond the concepts of life and death, which includes the concept of space and time, which could be a duality in of itself. Essentially, I don't believe in low outerversal at all. That could literally just mean you could be like infinite dimensional. At least what Versus Battle Wiki uses. General outerversal just means you're beyond the concept of space and time. Generally speaks for itself. Something called platonic archetypal concepts, you could say, are like anywhere from outerversal to high outerversal, depending on the fictional verse. Popular outerversal verses that I've seen are, if we're talking about high outerversal as well, we're talking about the top 10. Like say Umineko, Cthulhu Mythos, Elder Scrolls. I've heard people say Warhammer 40k is around that tier. You can also scale, like, let's see, what else? You can also scale DC, definitely outerversal. Marvel, you can also scale outerversal. There is a good deal of consistency for outerversal Marvel, so I do believe it. I'm a bit iffy on high outerversal Marvel, though. I mainly just need to see the consistency for high outerversal Marvel. And the problem is, though, is that, like, whenever I generally ask for high outerversal Marvel stuff, people generally just don't really want to talk to me about it, like, vocally. Or don't really provide anything other than just comment after comment. So, like, if you want to, like, I guess talk to me about high outerversal Marvel, then, like, I guess I'll just get Corn in the call, and then we'll all talk about high outerversal Marvel or whatever. But for now, I do believe Marvel is at least outerversal. At least at peak, you could scale it higher into outerversal, whatever, right? But the top 10, or like verses that are beyond the concept, space and time, dualities, Aristotelian concepts. Essentially, you could say Aristotelian concepts. You could scale 1A. Depends on how you scale Aristotelian concepts. So basically, in fiction, right? High outerversal is the highest area that you can scale to. High outerversal, the difference between outerversal and high outerversal is essentially where you're outerversal on top of outerversal, right? Basically, there's an outerversal difference between outerversal and high outerversal. That's how you get to high outerversal, right? The top 10 are the most popular high outerversal verses, actually. The top 10 includes, again, Warhammer, DC, Umineko, Cthulhu Mythos, Elder Scrolls, stuff like that, right? You could also say characters like Trueform Darkseid. You can also say characters like the Dragonborn, the Prisoner from Marvel. You can say like Featherine, right, from Moving Echo. You could say Endless Source or Battlers like High Outerversal. You can say the one above all is like Outerversal. You could say like Trigon. You can scale him to Outerversal. The to High Outerversal. Not sure where Trigon is consistently. The Emperor of Mankind. I've heard people scale him to high Outerversal, or at least Outerversal. I've also heard people scale characters like Oblivion Outerversal, right? I've even heard some things along the lines of like Cthulhu being high 1A or 1A, but anyway. But the point is, those are the highest you're gonna get in fictions like high Outerversal. You could transcend fiction or whatever, but that would just mean you could just be like, basically in a higher dimension, where it could just be higher and not Outerversal, or just Outerversal entirely. So, anyway, here's the tiering system. I'm gonna briefly cover numbers, right? Essentially, this is where like basically energy in like normal terms. Here is energy in tons or TNT. And then here's energy in joules, right? Raw energy. Now I'm gonna go ahead and keep it simple here. So basically, 0 to like 4 to the 10th, right? That's like below average, right? That's human level. This is like basically there's a lot of big numbers here. Also, I'll just like link this page below, but basically this page covers the gap between places and scaling, like say the difference between large building to say city block, right? 11 tons to say 100 tons, that's city block. 100 tons to 1 kiloton, that's multi-city block, right? The difference between 1 kiloton and 100 tons is a massive difference, right? So, anyway though, so I'm gonna like link this below. So anyway, sorry about that. Basically, it speaks for itself. So, okay, how long have I been doing this now? About 37 minutes. Okay, so lifting strength and striking strength. Okay, this is a popular one. So, keep in mind, not all fictional verses will have the same rules or same laws, right? Basically, lifting strength is like you'll be able to bench press, you'll be able to like lift up weights. Basically, your lifting strength essentially just allows you to just lift things up, right? Your striking strength is your power that you can punch at, right? Whenever you can, like, say, lift the entire universe, that would be, like, a lifting strength feat. If you could say punch and destroy the entire universe, that would be universal, right? Or, like, universal punching strength, right? Now, you can have relative striking strength and lifting strength levels, but again, depends on the fictional verse and depends on the scaling. But most of the time, you're going to see feats be striking strength, or at least just some form of attack power being around those levels. Lifting strength scaling to like striking strength depends on the character entirely, or just depends on the physics of the verse. Durability, basically the same thing as attack power and like lifting strength. Basically how much you can tank, like say, you can tank like say some nuclear bomb being blown on you and you just don't do a single thing, right? The popular, like, a popular example of this is probably Jaggy from Fist of the North Star, where he tanked a nuke being thrown on its face. A popular area people scale that to is, like, country level, because, like, the country level Jaggy Kelk. I've been talking for a while. Basically, durability, literally same thing as striking strength and lifting strength, but just how much you can tank, rather than how much power you can throw. A consistent amount of characters, or at least a common amount of characters I've seen, because of Newton's laws, could like have relative durability to relative power, because of how much you tank because of how much you can throw is likely relative to how much you can tank. That's not true for all characters, obviously, since you have things like hacks you have to talk about, or just like sometimes just have this retarded technique, like say I don't know the Kamehameha, right? Goku's Kamehameha might, because it's so strong, might scale above his durability, rather than be relative to his durability. Anyway, so it could be relative to his durability, or it could be higher than durability, right? Literally, I'd be going back. I'd literally just be the same thing over and over, just relative, like lifting strength and striking strength. So anyway, so that should do it for the most part for scaling, right? Oh yeah, before I actually get done with it, so now one-shotting foes, that's definitely subjective territory. I don't believe it's only 2 times, at least for the most part. Some verses might only be 2 times. Some verses might be 50%. Some verses might be 30%. Some verses might be like 3/4, right? One-shot territory, that is completely subjective, right? Again, depends on the verse. If you can't scale from physics of the verse, most of the time I say if you're more than, say, anywhere from like 2 to like a 10 times difference in power, stronger, or 2 to a 10 times difference more durable, you generally will not get hurt at all or very much, or you're going to be hurting your opponent like critically, or will be one-shotting them. Or you could say it could be higher than 2 to 10 times, right? Really, at the end of the day, one-shot territory, it's always going to be a subjective territory. So if you have questions about like one-shot, I'll just like answer it here. So most verses, right, will generally have, I guess, 2 to 10 times, right? I don't believe exactly 2. I'm a little skeptical of 2 times. I don't think it's blitz or it's like one-shot territory. I think higher than 2 times is more feasible to me, personally. But other than that, though, right? Yeah, one-shot is, like, again, a subjective territory. I'd be saying the same thing over and over why that is, so... Anyway, so I'll be leaving these links below. Expect some gameplay, actually. I'll be playing The Last of Us 2, and, like, uploading some gameplay. I will also, like, be doing some Dead by Daylight with Valor. Valor is a good friend of mine. Might also be playing some Sea of Thieves. Might also be playing some, Halo. I do have Xbox Game Pass, and I can download games on PC, so... if you want me to play a game, I might be able to download it, though I'm not for sure going to be able to download it on PC. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I thought this is a good remaster and essentially like a decent explanation of like the power scaling meta is. Because again, right, at the end of the day, right, this is just a scaling meta. I'm not even talking about speed scaling. I'm not even talking about calculations or math. This is just a base level remaster of that video, so you're not going to be hearing anything new except maybe some more stuff that I came up with. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe if you're new. Expect gameplay since that's what I have the most time for lately. Expect me to upload that stuff soon. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm nothing important here. If it was helpful, please leave a like. If you have any questions, just go watch the video, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye. Have a nice day.